Happy American Thanksgiving! Didn't know you were going to get a bonus video on Thanksgiving Day, did you? Welcome to Protagonist Pub. My name is Tammy, and this is where characters gather. I am filming this the week before Thanksgiving. Thanks to the lovely Jeanette over at Jane Reads who tagged me in this video. I will leave a link to Jeanette's video in the description box, as well as the original creator of the tag and all of the prompts. And I must say, I never anticipated counting all of my books. And so that was a fun activity. So let's do the prompts. First prompt is count them one by one. Go ahead, try and count them. So this prompt wants you to count all the books you own. I stopped counting at 400. And that does not include all the books I just ordered from Cabalets for the huge outlet sale. I'm sure it will be far more than 400 by the time those books arrive, which in theory they are arriving before this video releases. So just, tack on another 100 since I bought sets of books. I'm okay with that. Most of them are unread. Most of them I have every intention of reading, and the ones that have been read are books I'm holding onto, because some books need to be held onto in physical format so that they're preserved. I fully believe that. So we're going to go with 400. And Dave, if you're watching, that 400 number is completely made up. Honestly. It's nowhere close to that. Prompt number 2, life-changing books. What are some books that changed you or profoundly impacted you in some way? This is an interesting question. Yes, and the girls are very active all of a sudden. I have read so many books in my life. It's hard to pin it down, but the one that always springs to mind when this type of question rolls around is A Tree Grows in Brooklyn by Betty Smith. I read this, I want to say when I was 8 or 9, and it kickstarted my love for not just the big, fat, chunky book, but historical fiction, even though it wasn't that historical at the time I read it. It is much more historical fiction today. And I lost myself in that book. Books had always worked for me before that one, but that book holds a special place in my heart. It's just, and I don't own a copy of it. I am continually looking, but don't like any of the paperback versions, and I haven't seen a hardback version I like. So that book is truly it truly set me on the path to be just a voracious reader as an adult. It did, and I am profoundly thankful for that. I will say that the other book that profoundly impacted my life, and I'm only going to talk about fiction books in this video. I'm going to leave we all have faith books that work for us. And they work for us on a personal level, and I think that we as readers and humans know what works for us faith-wise. And I think that those books are important, but I think fiction in particular has an ability to make you relate to others on a different level. And I think one of those profoundly impactful books for me to relate to others on a different level was Alice in Wonderland. I will show you my copy here in a little bit. That very fantastical story has all kinds of villains in it and all kinds of heroes and challenges, and it's the first time you as a little kid realize that not everybody is going through life with the same journey and path that you are on. You may not realize it as a child to understand that you're on, footpath A and somebody else is on footpath Z, and your paths will never meet. But you have the same challenges. They're just on different paths. And when Alice sits down and has tea with the Mad Hatter and all that transpires, you begin to realize that there is this great big wide world out there waiting to be discovered. And that was just magical for me. It was truly a magical moment in my reading life. Yeah. Okay. Prompt number 3. Special editions. What are some editions and copies that you really love? Is there a book that is very valuable to you, and do you have for sentimental reasons? So I have several. I went to Catholic school as a child, and I've had this. See if there's a date in it. I don't think there is. So this was published in 1970. So I've probably had this since very early in grammar school. And the reason I love it so much is hang on, very hard to see because the ink is fading. But my dad wrote what it was, and he wrote my name, and I cherish it for that. My dad's still alive. But as society has progressed forward, we have lost the wonder that is the handwritten. And as everything becomes digital and life is much more sterile, there are fewer and fewer tangible memories of loved ones left behind in their own hand. And that is something I think future generations are going to regret not having. I've made a point of, as my nieces and nephews get married, I make them a cookbook of beloved recipes, and I make sure I handwrite all of those recipe cards out. Each and every time I will do it, and it's important. Yes, it would be faster and I could just print off if I just did it on the computer, but they wouldn't have a piece of me after I am gone, and they wouldn't have a piece of family history that they can pass down and share. And there's no more love letters to discover, between your parents in the attic that they wrote while they were courting, because everything's electronic and text messages, and it's here one day and it's gone the next. Even if we store it on the cloud, it's here one day and it's gone the next. And I think society is losing something. And my brother has the family Bible that's been passed down through the generations. He has children. He's the only male child. It should have gone to him. So he has all of that handwritten stuff. And this is the handwritten stuff I have from my dad. And, I will forever cherish the fact that 50 plus years later, I still have this. And it's still, it's still in my father's very precise, very perfect penmanship, which is incredibly different than his cursive. Yeah, it's incredibly different than his cursive. So the next one is the Bible I used in high school, because it was much easier to transport this to and from school than it was my big one from grammar school. And it's got my stickers on it, and it's protected, and I know I have writing in here, and of course I can't come across any as I at least have highlights from back in the day. So I cherish these two books. I thought about getting another Bible for the year in the Bible I'm going to do in 2024. And I realized I don't need another one. I have these, and they're beautiful and filled with memories. And so I'm keeping these, and I'm going to use these for that. So those are two of the cherished books. So the next two are just as cherished, but for very different reasons. So first up is my copy of Alice in Wonderland. I've had this since I was a small child. I still have the watch that has this picture in it. It has its original band from when I was small. It's falling apart, but I will never get rid of it. My aunt and uncle brought this home for me from England, and I know Aunt Marion has passed away. I think Uncle Chuck has as well. I cherish this book. It is beautifully illustrated. It has these beautiful color illustrations throughout. And this is one of the books that makes me very sad that we don't have children to pass them along to. So they will go to whichever niece or nephew has kids first. But this book is one of the ones that taught me that the world is a very big place, and it's very filled with people who are different than me and have so much to teach me. And yeah, it will always hold a place in my heart. And the next one is the family copy of The Wizard of Oz, and this one was published in 1956. It was my mom's when she was a schoolgirl. In fact, it has her address in it. And so it's The Wizard of Oz. The spine is falling apart. It has been taped at least once, but this portion always falls apart. And I don't take this book out very often. I don't want it to get further damaged. But it has illustrations in it as well. I just happened to turn to a page with a flying monkey. Still have the power to scare me to this day. I loved this book. I love this entire series. When we got our RV, we named it the Gump because it was a magical vehicle that took us everywhere we wanted to go. And all 4 of those books made the cut and toured the country with us. So you know they're important to me when you make weight space for a book in your RV. So, prompt number 4, gifted books. Books you love that have been gifted to you. I guess I could count Alice in Wonderland, but in general, people don't gift me books. Be it family, friends, whoever. People don't gift me books because I go through them so quickly and I move on. That isn't to say that I am not appreciative of books as they come into my possession. It's not to say that I don't obviously hoard them and love them and, fill my spaces with them. But in general, people do not gift Tammy books. I read them too fast, and it isn't something anybody generally gifts me. I know at one point in my life, my parents probably gifted me Shakespeare, but I don't even think I have a copy of the complete works of Shakespeare anymore. I should probably add that to my collection of books that need to be cherished and preserved. Note to self. But in general, people don't gift Tammy books, so none. 5, the blessings of a book. How has reading benefited you in your life? Emotionally, mentally, spiritually? Reading keeps me sane. I can always lose myself in a book. I can always pick up a book and read someone else's story and find a little sliver or nugget, tuck it away for future use. In the worst times of my life, it's been an escape. At the best times of my life, it has been a joy. And for everything in between those two polar extremes, it has been a constant. And as Dave will attest, a Tammy who isn't reading on a regular basis is a miserable, grumpy person. And I know this about myself. And reading is literally what keeps me sane. The variety and the just vast worlds that open up when you pick up a book, and the depth of the imagination of authors is humbling. And I am so thankful that authors are willing to bare their souls to the world and say, here's all of me. Please judge me kindly when you pick up the book. Yes, I don't always read every book I pick up. I DNF on a regular basis, but I think that is part of being an honest reader. Not every book is for every reader. And I think authors are wise enough to know that. And I am grateful for every author who has ever written a book that I have read, attempted to read, because they put a piece of themselves out there for the world to judge. And that isn't easy. I think books, especially books you hold, they're all too frequently these days electronic, but books you physically hold take the reader out of themselves and puts themselves in someone else's shoes. And if you do that enough times, you become a more compassionate person and less self-involved. And I would not be who I am today without books. They are truly a blessing for which I am thankful on a regular basis. So, okay. Prompt number 6. Friends, the greatest blessing. Do you have in real life friends that love to talk books with you? No. The honest answer is no. My mom doesn't really read anymore. She has macular degeneration. Reading is very difficult for her, so she doesn't read anymore. My dad reads. He reads at a much slower pace than I do. We do share books, and I send him suggestions, but he tends to have a very narrow reading preference, and that's fine. He's, in his 80s now, and he's allowed to read whatever he wants. And, if he likes, spy thrillers written by, murder mysteries solely written by men with male protagonists, that is great. And if I run across a really good one, I always recommend it to him. But, in general, no. Dave does not read. My book club, while I was still in book group, didn't really like to talk about books. They didn't actually become friends. And I have always been an introvert and have never really had friends, which makes me so deeply appreciative of the community on book group and Instagram. Your comments are just a huge blessing, and they make me realize that I am not the sole person that loves book A or book B, or you had a completely different reaction to something I've read, and I may have loved it, you may have hated it, or vice versa. And I love hearing that, because it means somebody else loves books as much as I do. And, I wish there were people in my life that loved books, but, in real life, but there aren't. And, that's okay. We all have things we love and don't love, and that's what makes humans different, unique. So that concludes this book tag. So I have counted my blessings. Feel free to go count yours. Let's see. Am I going to tag anyone? Um, no, I'm not going to tag anyone. It's Thanksgiving. Please go enjoy it with your family. Please, stuff yourself full of turkeys and watch some football or go outside and play football, better yet, with your family and friends. And I will see you here next time at the Protagonist Pub.